everybody. Welcome to the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report. We have today returning guest, journalist living in Bethlehem in the Holy Land, Paul Calvert. Paul, thank you for being with us. We love to hear your updates about what's happening in the Holy Land, what's happening at in the village that is the birthplace of Jesus, the very Jewish Jesus. So give us an update on what's happening. We've had the peace agreement, we've had the hostages released, we have Christmas upcoming. Give us a sense of what's happening in your community.
Well, it's very exciting at the moment because Christmas is coming and it's coming very, very soon. And we've had 2 years of no real Christmas celebrations because of the war. So the first year was 2023. In December, there was no celebration at all. So everything was very bleak because it was the start of the holiday. It was very, very difficult for Israel with so many people that had been killed. And then, of course, it was so difficult for Palestinians because they're seeing war happen in Gaza. But that has a knock-on effect for Bethlehem. So we don't really see the killing side, but we do see the effect here in Bethlehem with the tourist side. So the tourism just basically died. And because of that, they didn't have a Christmas tree. They didn't have the lights because they didn't want to be seen celebrating when Gaza was in mourning. They put up a nativity scene, which was in the rubble to resemble what was happening and what was going on in Gaza. And then on the 24th of December, that's usually a big time of celebration where all the scout troops come from all around the area and they will march through Bethlehem with their band, with their musical instruments and everything. But that year, they just marched with banners and they just walked through with banners, basically stop the war and this and that and all them kind of things. And then last year, it was a little bit similar, but it maybe wasn't as political in that sense. They walked through and they blew whistles and just walked through the streets into Bethlehem, and there was one banner there, and they're bringing the patriarch in. So this year, hopefully, all this stuff should get back to normal. So I haven't spoken to the mayor of Bethlehem yet, so I don't know exactly how we're going to be doing it, but I do know that we're getting a Christmas tree.
Okay.
I had heard that Bejala and Betzahor weren't going to have a Christmas tree, and I saw one angry comment on Facebook, "Oh, we demand a Christmas tree." Well, now Bejala and Betzahor are having a Christmas tree as well. So I've just driven past there today, and their Christmas tree is nearly built. Here in Bethlehem, they're still building the Christmas tree, so we're going to be having celebrations. I don't know how big the celebrations are going to be, because normally everybody comes in, there's a lighting ceremony and all the dignitaries come. We usually have the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority comes in and he turns on the lights. So I don't know how much of a big thing, because in some ways I feel this is all very much last minute. Because usually they raise money to pay for the lighting. Well, it's not all that long ago since the peace deal was signed. They probably weren't expecting to have a Christmas tree this year. So I imagine a lot of things have been rushed through to get the Christmas tree out and to do the celebrations. Whether we'll have fireworks, I don't know. We normally have lighting above the Christmas tree. Well, that's not there at the moment. So I don't think they've got enough time to put that up. But there is lighting up as you come into Bethlehem, so I'm expecting all that to be lit up as well. We had the annual Olive Festival, which was great. So that was happening. We also had we've got coming up very soon, that they have all the different countries of the world come in and do like selling their product for the Christmas market. So we're going to have a Christmas market as well this year. So it's exciting to see that Christmas is getting back to normal. We've got a peace deal, and I don't really think that there's peace there. I think there's going to be trouble ahead, but at least we can sort of have some sort of resemblance. And we are seeing tourists, and tourists are coming back as well. So things are starting to get back to normal. It's been a very, very difficult 2 years for the tourist sector and the tourist industry. And actually, it isn't really 2 years that they've been struggling, because if you remember back in 2020, there was the COVID, and that affected them, and now this, so they've doubly been affected. So it's been a very difficult time for Bethlehem and the tourism economy.
But you have noticed some sort of uptick in tourism if they're going to have the market again and they're going to start decorating and celebrating. Have you seen a little bit more of people visiting and looking at
There's more tourists in Bethlehem, and also our mayor, the mayor of Bethlehem, he's a new mayor, so this will be his first time doing Christmas this year. He's a new mayor, but he's also from the tourist sector. So he has tourism shops. So I think he will be very good for the tourist industry because he will understand particularly about the tourism part. So I think in the years to come, he will really be able to promote that and push Bethlehem in a bigger way to get more and more tourists coming. So I've just been in Bethlehem today with a group from America and taking them round. So we had a great time. We went to the House of Hope for the blind and the mentally ill kids, and they sang some songs, and even the kids were singing with them and everything. Then we had lunch, went to visit a blind lady. And then after that, we've done a bit of tourism stuff as well. So it's been great doing ministry and doing the tourist side as well.
So, Paul, let me ask you something. As you see this return to that traditional celebrations of Christmas and Christians being able to be a little bit more expressive for their holidays, how has the Jesus is a Palestinian narrative, which kind of had a little bit of a bump post October 7th with Mother Isaac's Jesus in the rubble and that kind of stuff. How is that narrative playing out just now as you see people return to the more traditional celebrations and commemorating Jesus' birthplace at Christmas time?
It's the thing that always comes out every single year. People put out that Jesus was a Palestinian, and we know it's just not true. But one thing that struck my mind just recently is when you go into Manger Square, you will go down to the grotto where Jesus was born, and there is a 14-pointed star. And that 14-pointed star is shouting out to everybody, Jesus was a Jew. So it's so great that here in Bethlehem, which is a Palestinian authority, and people jump on that fact that Jesus was a Palestinian, right there where Jesus was born, it is shouting out that Jesus was a Jew. It's 14 points. So why was it 14-pointed star? Well, if you look in the book of Matthew, Matthew gives the genealogy, and he says there's 14 generations from here to here, then there's another 14 generations from here to here, then there's another 14 generations from here to here. And he seemed to be focused on the number 14. And why was he focused on the number 14? Well, in Hebrew, there's something called, I got to pronounce it right, grammatria or something like that. I might not be pronouncing it properly, but what it means is every letter of the alphabet has a number attached to it. So for instance, the letter D has the number 4 attached to it. The letter V has the number 6 attached to it. So if you think of King David and you put David, D-V-D, adds up to 14.
Wow.
So what Matthew was saying, Jesus is in the line of David. There is your 14, DVD. So right there in Manger Square where Jesus was born, it is shouting out that Jesus was a Jew because he was from the line of David. That's what the book of Luke says. He was from the line of David. And if you go into the genealogy of Matthew, it tells you, he was part of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So that means that he was a Jew. He wasn't a Palestinian because it was Hadrian, the Emperor Hadrian. He wanted to wipe out all the existence of the Jews here in the land. So the land was Judea, so he wanted to wipe that out. So he decided to change the name to Syrian Palestina in about AD 135. AD 135.
It was 100 years after Jesus was in the area that name change occurred.
It would be about 100 years after Jesus was died. He wanted to change it and basically totally eradicate and wipe out the existence of the Jews. So he changed the name to Syrian Palestina, and that is where that comes from. And today we have Jews that have came into the land, and that's one thing that the colonialists have brought them. They've came in, but if you look at many Palestinians as well, many Palestinians have came into the land as well. So people who call themselves Palestinians today aren't really Palestinians because we've got Syrians that came in from the Syrian exile. We've got many Armenians today. So if you meet a guy and his last name, the part of it has at the end of his name, I-A-N, like I know someone called Simon Izazian, I-A-N, that tells you he isn't actually Palestinian, he's from Armenia. So he came into the country. He came in. So he's not a Palestinian in that sense. So many people have actually came into the land. So and we know that in the 1960s the Palestinian flag was invented. And well, who has been the prime minister? Who has been the president? All these sort of things. You can only go back as far as Yasser Arafat and say, well, he was the leader. He was the president. Well, who was the president before then? So there is a sense of a made-up history, because the Palestinians have never once ruled this land. In some way, now, this day, they rule more than they've ever ruled because they have a Palestinian authority. Right. So that's the biggest they've ever ruled. But that also obviously came out of the Oslo Peace Accords, middle 1990s. So Jesus wasn't a Palestinian, he was a Jew. And if you believe he was a Palestinian, you have a really big problem with your theology because the Messiah is going to be Jewish. So there's a very big problem. So we have to be careful that we don't jump onto this political correctness. I can imagine there's all these students, these college students running around with their kaffirs and their pink hair saying, Jesus was a Palestinian. Read your Bible, read history, get to understand it and get to know it, because Jesus wasn't a Palestinian, he was a Jew. He had to be a Jew.
And there wasn't even any Palestine at that point in history yet anyway, not even regionally. So Paul, you're sharing some interesting evolutions in what's going on in Bethlehem, because there was this contraction of celebrations. There's this competing narrative with the Palestinian Jesus thing, which is just a political agenda, and it challenges people's ability to think logically, both with their theology, if they're Christian, as well as their history itself. But now we're seeing the Christmas tree come back, the celebrations coming back, the marketplace, the tourists. And in these 2 years, you also had some exciting creativity happen in what you're working on. Tell us about what you've got coming out that we can share with our audience, and how that journey for you was from that sort of dark period to now we have a book about Christmas.
Well, I write every week, I write a poem. So I try to think of different ideas. And I started, well, actually, I've always done a lot of writing and things when I was younger. So when I was like 18 or 19, I used to send off comedy scripts and put things together, send it to the BBC and get my rejection letters and things like this. So I was always doing little bits of writing. And then for a while, I just never really done anymore. It sort of stopped. And it's sort of been a little bit on and off and on and off. And then when we got to COVID, I wrote a poem about the medical heroes and put it on my Facebook, and it seemed to do really well. So from there, I've been writing a poem, trying to do one about every week if I can. So we've been doing that and putting them up onto my Rumbles channel. And then at Christmas time, I've always wrote a very special poem. And because I like the romance of Christmas, and I love Walt Disney, so all the things like, the Walt Disney stories and all of that. So I always used to write like a story about an animal. And because I've got cats in my house, it used to be about my cat. So I do all kinds of different stories every year, a special Christmas story about a cat, and then the next year do another one about in a different direction. So I used to do all them. And then in 2023, which was a very difficult year for Israel and a difficult year for the Palestinians here in Bethlehem, that Christmas, I decided to write a bigger book. So I got the idea of writing a story about the Trafalgar Square Christmas tree. Now, for those who don't know about Trafalgar Square, that is where we have a Christmas tree every year in London. So because we helped out the Norwegians in the war, they've always given us a free Christmas tree. So I wrote this story in poetic form, about a Christmas tree in Norway that wanted to be the Trafalgar Square Christmas tree. So he works hard to be the Trafalgar Square Christmas tree. And then basically, eventually, he gets to fulfill his ambition. But different things happen on the way to him trying to be the Trafalgar Square Christmas tree. So that's what I've done. I wrote that in 2023 over 9 days. So every day I wrote a chapter. So I wrote them here in Bethlehem, which is the capital of Christmas.
That's right.
So it's nice to be able to write it. Then one day I thought, well, I want to go shopping. So I try not to sort of just stay in front of the TV all the time or anything like that. So I wanted to go out. So I went to Jerusalem, and I was in Jerusalem really, really early. So I thought, well, I'll write a chapter of my book. So I'm sitting out there at Jaffa Gate, sitting there writing a chapter of my book and thinking about it and everything. So I wrote one chapter there in Jerusalem, but most of it was actually written in Bethlehem. So then last year, I done the same thing. So I wrote a second book because the first one, it finished with a little bit of something's wrong. So then we go on for the second one. We talk about, it's called The King's Christmas Pudding. And that's being produced and worked on at the moment at the publishers. So basically there is a mix-up. So the king orders a Christmas pudding and his Christmas pudding goes up into space and he gets something for the International Space Station by mistake. So that's the story for that one. And I wrote that last Christmas over the 9 days of the Christmas period. And it just so happens that one of those days, my friend had to go to Nablus. So I said I'd go with him. And then it was absolutely pouring down with rain. So I'm sitting in the car and I'm writing a chapter of my book while he's getting all his paperwork sorted out. So again, most of it was written in Bethlehem, but there was one day where I wrote it somewhere else. So that's been written. And then this year, I plan to write another to make it like a bit of a trilogy. So I'm going to write another one over the 9 days of Christmas this year as well.
Wonderful. So we are going to share how folks in America can order that book. It's from Barnes and Nobles. So that'll be in the show notes of the Trafalgar Square book. Paul, tell us a little bit about the audience for this book. What made you choose to write to children? Let our listeners know who this is a good book for so that they can start to order it and have something prepared for holiday gift giving.
I think we need to have good stuff for children and we need to have good it's not a Christian book, so you'll notice there isn't anything Christian in it, but it's like bad versus good in that sense, but it's also about a Christmas tree that had an ambition, wanted to be something, and you see that in it. And it's important to know that to have a dream, to have a vision. The Bible says without a dream the people perish. So we do need to have a dream and a vision in our life and get a hold of our dream. I would never have believed in that sense of publishing a book. I used to work in a book warehouse, many, many years ago, sending everybody else's book. Now my book is going to be going out soon. So it's basically based for 6 to 12-year-olds. But I think adults can get something out of it as well, because it's just a lot of fun and there's a little bit of comedy in there as well, little bits and pieces. And I think it's just a great comedy, fun book for the whole family. And maybe it will be a tradition, a Christmas tradition, where every year you can sit down and read this book and just get into the little bit of spirit of Christmas. And hopefully the second one will be out soon, and then the third one will be out as well. So just start a Christmas tradition and start reading the book over Christmas to your children or your grandchildren, and it's just an enjoyable time.
Well, I mean, that sounds exciting that you'll have this sort of collection that people can acquire each Christmas, knowing that you wrote them in the Holy Land. Whether you were in Bethlehem, Jerusalem, or Nablus, the idea is that you live there and you pen these stories that enlighten us and inspire us, that we can share with our families and create new traditions. But it's coming from the traditional origin, or as you mentioned before, the capital of Christmas, which is Bethlehem. So I think that's really exciting and really special to connect history with something today. And for Americans to read about the Trafalgar Square Christmas tree, that's pretty interesting, because in the US we have a tradition in New York City to have Rockefeller Center have a big Christmas tree, and those trees always come in from upstate or New England or whatnot. So it's a little bit of an insight. It's sort of like our cousin story, right? Because England has its tree, America has its tree, but we can learn about England's tree from an author who's penning it in the Christmas capital, which is Bethlehem. So we're excited to share that. You can look in the show notes for the Barnes and Noble link. It's an extremely affordable book. You can get several copies and pass them out, and then start to collect them over the years as they pop out. So we'll make sure that as your additional editions come out and the sequels to this story, we'll make sure we're sharing them, because I do think it's a beautiful thing. It's a collectible, and it's just a way to also share lessons, right? Just life lessons that are biblically based, even if it's not necessarily a Christian story.
That was fantastic. Thank you.
Paul, we're going to keep touch with you. I know you're now writing for All Israel News, so we will be republishing your articles in that regard on our social medias or our blog pages, so everybody look for that. Paul, thank you for your time today. I know it's a busy and exciting season upcoming in Bethlehem with a little bit more joy, perhaps, than the last 2 years that have just passed. But we want to continue to pray for you and bless you in your reporting and the work you do. For example, taking the group from Washington, D.C. through Bethlehem today. These are really special and important things you do.
Yeah, well, it's great just to be an actual advocate for Bethlehem. I love Israel. My heart is for Israel, but my heart is for the Palestinian Christians. And though I may not always agree with them theologically, we still want to bless them and show them that God loves them and has a plan and a purpose for their life as well. So that's really, really important. So if people do come to the Holy Land, it is important to go and see the Christian community as well and let them know that they're not left out, because sometimes they do feel like second-class citizens. So this is an opportunity just to bless the economy and bless the people here in Bethlehem as well.
That's right. We definitely agree. When you pray for the peace of Jerusalem and you pray for Israel, we need to remember that that's all its inhabitants, and that includes the Arabs and the Christians who have been persecuted for quite some time, not by Israel, but by other forces in the region. So, Paul, great to see you again. And we'll be touching base with you again very soon and get the update on how the holiday is going. Have a great week. God bless. If you enjoy these conversations, please visit us at www.thejerusalemconnection.us. Find all our podcasts on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast program. Follow us on social media. Subscribe, like, and share our content to reach the broadest audience.